Alright guys, just attempting we're beginning the job to replace the timing belt on my Dacia Duster. So far I have removed the bash plate. I had to remove a bolt from there, but it was rounded, so I had to get a special socket to remove that. And then I was able to remove all the other 10mm bolts on this pan to remove it. You can see a little bit of oil weeping there, which doesn't look phenomenal. I will check the oil levels to be sure that we're not losing too much. And maybe there's a seal there. I'm pretty lazy with changing the washers on the plug when I change the oil once per year, so it's the first time I've actually had the pan off and looking at it in detail. So it may just be from part of this process of changing the oil, but it is looking a little bit messy there. Otherwise, there seems to be a little bit there as well on that back. It looks like either the gearbox or the transfer case. I'm not entirely sure if there is a transfer case in this one. I think there is, but there's at least something there that should probably be changed. Anyway, job at hand here is to change the timing belt, which is further in, but I need to just remove the accessory belt first, so I'm just mainly recording this to remember what it actually looks like, so when I go to put it back together I've got some idea of how it was put together. Okay, so current progress on the Duster is we have removed the bottom pulley here, we've removed the bottom cover on the cam belt, we've removed the top cover on the cam belt, then this is a part of the wheel arch. We've removed part of it, which is quite a nice feature. We've also removed engine mount. That was a bit of an effort, and now we've removed some kind of metal cover thing over the cam belt, so that's another thing which we have removed. Engine is currently sitting on a jack. You can see that, probably can't see it very well, but it's sitting on a jack. So I'm a bit worried about leaving the place, so I'd maybe put it on an axle stand if I have to leave it overnight. We are going to be setting the timing next. Well, not setting the timing, but it's essentially locking this pulley here by rotating the engine clockwise. We will be marking some points on the pulleys, and subsequently we will be removing the tensioner and removing the belt. Remember, there's lots of other significantly better videos online regarding changing the timing belt on these K9K engines, so by all means refer to them as opposed to this, but this is a specific Duster timing belt video which I haven't actually managed to find any of them on YouTube, so if you really want some Duster specific content, here we are. So yeah, the light's not great. We're at the stage now where we're gonna put some other side lining. There's like a notch here. Here's a notch, and then there's a hole in the engine block where I can put in a pin, or in my case I think I'm going to try and use one of these bolts to lock this in place. There is another locking part in there to lock the bottom. I think that's a crankcase thing at the bottom. We'll lock that in, but I'm not going to do that. But once I've got this turned and this locked in, then I will mark the pulley points on all of 1, 2, and then the bottom pulley to make sure that when we put everything back together that everything's all lined up. There is little marks on the pulleys themselves. See these yellow marks, so they should also help with timing. You can see there's like a little kind of notchy thing in this one at the bottom there, so I'm hoping that it should all help work. And there's another one on the bottom here, this guy here, so these should be right at the bottom once I rotate enough. I think that's what's going to happen. So yeah, I think it's the same. Is it an 18mm socket that I'm going to use to turn the engine. Alright guys, so remove the water pump now. That was a bit of an operation. There's actually relatively small 8mm screws on there. There is 5 of them. One of them is a wet jacket, so it's got Loctite on it. When you take it off, it does actually, water comes out. So remove that. Maybe see better under here. There maybe. Sorry for the bad images. There's a water pump there. I need to clean up the old gasket. It's quite an effort to get it off. Watch, don't cut yourself. I managed to catch some of the brown looking coolant, but quite a lot of it is on the garage floor. So yeah, gonna let that drain overnight, then I'm gonna clean it up tomorrow morning. Maybe clean it with some brake cleaner as well. Okay, I have a replacement water pump. Reuse the old screws. Remember to put some more Loctite on the one which is in the water jacket. Here is a new gasket. I've also used a wire brush on the drill to clean off the old gasket material. So that's also recommended. Okay, that's me fitted the new water pump. You can see it down there, maybe, yeah. See it better from underneath. New water pump, and I've remounted the cover, plastic back cover, one of 3 covers I think. The back cover here. Now I'm going to put on the new tensioner as the next step. Okay, so it's not all rainbows and unicorns. I've been really struggling to get the timing belt on last night. So it's the next day now. I'm armed with some more YouTube knowledge, so I'm going to try and use some techniques that I've found on a great video, which I will link in the description / comments. Issues are I'm struggling to get the belt on single-handedly, so I'm going to use some clamps. However, a more slightly concerning issue is the timing on the bottom has moved just by a fraction of a millimeter, so I'm going to move it back with the socket just to be sure that it's correctly lined up again. And then I'm actually going to use some paint to even like have more of a very obvious timing marks, so when I rotate the engine a few times after putting the belt on, I can really confirm that that everything's actually working and is timed properly, because yeah, it's very important that I actually have some proper timing here. Okay, now the belt is on. That was extremely hard work. I used these clips, one on here, one on here, with it slightly off at the top, half on both of these pulleys, and a loose tensioner. So I've got that on. It was very hard work to get on at the crank area. Then I put on the tensioner. It was loose and I've tightened it up. We've gone through the correct process for tightening the tensioner, where you loosen off the bolt, then you use a 6mm Allen key, 6mm, to tighten up this arrow down here should line up with this second notch here apparently, which it does, and then I've snugged down the bolt afterwards. So that's that now. So I think we're ready now to rotate the engine and confirm that the timing is correct. So I have to just rotate the engine a few times, and then hopefully these marks that I've now put on with reddy pink ready pink paint. Now should hopefully go back to the same marking points after I have rotated the engine a few times. I've also marked at the bottom as well, so this is really to confirm that the timing is correct. There's marks on the belt here, so there's a white line here, and then there's a yellow mark on this cog here, and a white line here, yellow mark on that cog there. On the bottom, the white line does not line up, but as per YouTube that's fine, but there was actually a black line underneath this part where the marker is, so then I believe that that is actually correct as well. See, this is off a couple mils on this, so I'm hoping everything's okay. So yeah, I'm going to rotate it with my 18mm socket. Have this relatively large 18mm socket thing, and then rotate the engine a couple of times, and hopefully the timing is correct. Okay, I've rotated it a few times. Actually 2 full revolutions of the large top one. This is lined up at the bottom. The timing here matches, and timing there also matches. This is very good. Remember that the timing on the belt marks won't match, so it's you sort of think, okay, I'll go all the way around and these white marks will still maintain in the right marking points, but that's not the case. So don't be worried if these little white lines don't line up after you've done a few revolutions. It's more important that the marks on these pulleys line up when you go around. So yeah, it's all looking good, so I can put it all back together now. Oof. Yeah, so far I'd say this is a fairly difficult job for a hobby mechanic like myself. I am getting there, but it is a little bit of a challenge. So yeah, just if you can do this job yourself, just be aware that you will be saving a lot of money, but you will probably have to put a lot of effort in unless you're a pro. But I'm more of a noob or a journeyman. Okay, next step is to put the engine mount bracket back on. It's pretty much just the opposite of the removal process. So put this on, 5 bolts same size, then we will put on a top cover, plastic cover, then put on the bottom plastic cover, and then we'll go from there. I need to work out. Well, we've got the top clip and the bottom clip lowered down. We've also put the engine mount back on, and put on a new accessory belt tensioner. It's relatively straightforward, 13mm bolt. Bottom cover is good plastic, so it's gone in quite easy without any cracking. Put the bottom in from the bottom, which is nice. So now what remains is to put on the bottom pulley, put on the accessory belt, and then we can go about bleeding the engine. So apparently I bleed nipple under there somewhere. My finger is, you can't really see it. Yeah, so I'm going to use that to bleed the engine the proper way rather than just putting it in here and pressing some hoses like I used to do back in the day. So yeah, I'm going to attempt that tomorrow. Also, to make sure I've got a good torque on the bottom crank bolt, I'm getting a extra or the correct connector for this large air gun. Okay, so that looks to me as if the job is almost complete. However, what we need to do is, because I've got the skid plate off, I think I'm actually going to change both the diff oil, the transfer case oil and the gearbox oil. So I actually got some of that from the shop the other day. See the accessory belt's mounted again. I checked that was good. I've run the engine to make sure that everything's okay. Taken it up to temperature and filled up the coolant. So I'll show you the oil that we have for the transfer case, which is what we're going to do first. That is this valve. So I've 3D printed this thing which I can screw onto an old bottle of juice. So it's a sort of makeshift filler. So the idea is that we'll pour the oil in here, and then hopefully through gravity it'll come through here, and then we can pour into the side of the transfer case. Yeah, so I've removed the drain plug. It was actually a smaller plug socket, square size. Let me check. 8mm, not 9.5, so 8mm. And I've removed this little. This is for the oil, but the transfer case is further back. I removed that, and it's just sort of dripping away. I'm gonna let it drain for another few minutes before filling it up again. Okay, so here we have the tube connected onto this little mini funnel, and then I will be pouring stuff in here. We're looking for gravity to help us, and hopefully it should be around about 400 mils. Hi guys, we're using the power of gravity to fill the gearbox. As you can see, I've got a custom drinks bottle here with a 3D printed mini funnel which screws on. It's leaking a bit, which is not ideal, and then I've got a thick piping which is going into the gearbox, which is a relatively easy way to fill it up using the power of gravity to just go down. So I know this is 2.1 litres. I'm not sure whether I managed to actually get all of it out, so we're on to our second litre now. I just make sure that I fill this up before it goes down into the tube to avoid there being any air going in. But we're approaching 2 litres now, and still no leakage. Yeah, so on filling up the gearbox, it's now full, but there's a little bit of oil which is on the steering system and quite close to the brakes, so I'm going to use some brake cleaner to clean that. So as they say, cleanliness is next to godliness.